Operation Babel New Tokyo Legacy is a Japanese dungeon crawler RPG from Mages Inc. and a sequel to Operation Abyss. Like its predecessor, it's also a remake of an older game, Generation X Code Realize in this case. In most respects, Operation Babel is just like Operation Abyss, although there are some alterations and improvements. That is presumably the reason the sequel tends to be considered the superior game according to randos online. I, however, disagree. I preferred Operation Abyss as I didn't find the improvements that exciting. Moreover, it was still more of the same, and I preferred the plot in Abyss compared to the space babies and Final Fantasy reject villain of Babel. I won't go deep into the gameplay in Operation Babel as it's basically the same as in Operation Abyss. You have a party of 6 characters, they can have different classes with different spells and abilities. The party delves into dungeons to kill monsters and get loot. You can see my Argospective on that game for a deeper analysis of all that. I will focus on the changes and additions and perhaps some new gripes as well. There are no new classes, but the biggest change is that each character can have 2 different classes. You can combine any classes freely, however the primary class determines what kind of weapons and equipment you can wield. Let's say the primary is healer and the secondary is archer. That character cannot use bows unless the archer becomes primary. Both classes contribute their skills and spells, if any, to be used by the character though. The downside is that dual-classed characters level up a bit slower, but generally I think they gain more stats, since both classes contribute to that. I've seen a lot of praise for this addition into the game, yet I didn't find that much use for it. There is the distinct possibility that I'm merely too dumb to exploit the mechanic to create broken characters by combining classes in the optimal manner, but the fact is I didn't care for the system even if it sounds cool. One change is purely a positive though. In Abyss there wasn't any simple visual indicator to show whether a new weapon or equipment would have better stats than the one they're holding currently when navigating menus. Babel shows the stats in different color to indicate the change. It's insane this wasn't a thing in the first game. The following piece of criticism would basically apply to Abyss as well, but it didn't bother me as much as it did in Babel. The game has 2 types of items for reviving dead party members, basically Phoenix Downs. One type revives them with 1 hit point, the other with full HP. The issue is that there appears to be a limited amount of those items in the game. You can only buy a few dozen of them from the store even if you're loaded. That is a problem since in the late game you encounter enemies that can one-shot a party member at full health with 1 critical hit if you're unlucky. You can always revive characters back at the base, so if a character goes down it's sometimes wiser to head back home to revive them instead of wasting one of those limited items. Save them for boss battles. However, this is tedious. It's possible there is a place where you can grind for them, but I think it's retarded you can't keep buying them as long as you keep shelling out money. I did not get access to spells that can revive characters either, although there might be one at the highest spell tier. Another issue in Operation Babel is that some locations and monsters have been recycled from the first game. You see a lot of familiar faces, still there are several new locations and variants, yet it feels like there are less new things than old ones, although I didn't do a comprehensive study on the matter. The character creation has all the old models from Abyss as well as a few new ones. Yet it didn't feel like that many as I'd seen the majority of the skins already and didn't want to recycle the old ones I'd seen or used before. The story begins February 11th, 2000XX. We receive a briefing from the UN Special Peacekeeping Force that the X Squad has entered the embryo. What in Epstein is going on? Alice Mifune, familiar from the previous game, is leading the squad with two randos in tow. This is the only time in the game you get to control Alice. They seem to be floating above the earth on some sort of magical sci-fi platforms that form a wall-less dungeon. Kaito calls on the radio to remind us that he still exists. He explains that if Alice fails, it might mean the destruction of mankind. It would appear the stakes are high. A bit further, the party jumps into a teleporter rift thingy and winds up in a cosmic hyper funnel, slowly descending. A girl in traditional Japanese attire appears with a talking black toy rabbit. The sight is reminiscent of Masa from Operation Abyss, but clearly isn't her. They appear to be the enemy though. Then Alice calls her opponent Masa Muramasa. This confused me back when playing the game. If that's Masa, did they fire the previous artist? Because this Masa looks like ass. And why is she suddenly evil? Alice says X considered her an ally, but she was really a servant of the embryo. After a bit of banter, the fight begins. The battle is short. Alice kicks the ass of new Masa, but a voice informs us that nothing can alter the flow of destiny and something about a flowing hourglass. This is very much hinting at a significant plot point, but I won't spoil it yet. At this point, we see only the silhouette of our mysterious talker, and he does look somewhat intimidating and weird. That will change, however, further down the line. Then the anime opening begins. Afterwards, the date is a day in January 20XX. Location, the fancy district of Ginza. They're screaming and shouting. A generic person regains consciousness. A three-headed dragon thingy appears. A pink-haired anime girl wonders what's going on. The generic protagonist attempts to help her against the monster, until another anime girl appears and challenges the beast. She transforms into her combat form. The monster flies up to the space rose eggs. Cops say, "Move along, nothing to see here." The battle-capable girl asks the generic protagonist to come with her, and introduces herself as Noriko Hibino, a character from the previous game. We go to Hinowa Academy. There we meet the dean of the academy and boss of X Squad, Kanzaki, and are introduced to the CPA, Code Physics Agency. He explains about the dangerous embryo space babies 3,000 kilometers in diameter and above the Earth. Even the UN is involved in trying to figure out what to do with them. Hazard cases have started to appear in Tokyo again as well, such as the incident in Ginza. Then we meet Kaito, another familiar face. They explain how the X Squad fights against monsters called variants using code Rise and blood codes. It's all familiar stuff from Operation Abyss. The generic protagonist, of course, has the potential to be a code Rise wielder. At the end, Kanzaki asks whether you want to join their organization. I wonder what happens if you say no. I didn't, because I didn't want to waste time. But now I sort of regret it. Finally, we get to generate our party members. The first one is 35-year-old samurai Hentai Pervanaut, nicknamed Argonaut. He smokes and hangs around with teenagers for some reason. The second party member is Seinaru Upskirt, a monk, or would that be a nun? She's a she. She likes holy things and high kicks. Next up is Chichi Bloodletter, an assassin with assets, and she likes to spill blood. The fourth character is Kaede Kangairu, the academic with pink hair. She likes thinking, and later on teleporting around becomes her hobby. The healer is Sadago Jailbait, sister of Roriko Jailbait from Operation Abyss. Her hobbies are watching her friends die and occasionally healing them if she's alive. Last and least is Akai Lame-O, a male warrior. He enjoys the color red and hitting things with metallic instruments. These 6 people make up the Perv Company, named after the leader of the group. Their first mission is to head to a Shinto shrine called Aoi Shrine. It had turned into an abyss with monsters, so the team has to investigate, since Kaito suspects it might yield some information on the embryo. Noriko joins the mission, although she doesn't actually join the party. The place is snowy, surrounded in bamboo, and looks rather comfy. But there's a trail of blood on the ground. Noriko reports it to Kaito, who suspects it to have come from the cops who were guarding the shrine. There are several small shrines with a note with a single syllable. Could this be a puzzle? Perv Company encounters some monsters that are unfortunately familiar from the first game. Following the blood trail, eventually, though, they come across the first mini boss. It's actually just a couple of mantises. Afterwards, though, the group hears ominous footsteps and they hide. A menacing girl is dragging a corpse behind her. She's with the black rabbit from the intro, the fake Masa. The two of them talk and she leaves, leaving the corpse behind. Heading back to the exit, the party is transported to Limbo, or hallucinate, or something. But they see a man who is like an even more lame version of Kuja from Final Fantasy IX or Seymour from FF10. He lifts a hand and summons tentacles to fight. After the fight, he claims it's not Perv Company's destiny to die here. Sounds like Cope for failing to kill us with his animated sex toys. He also spouts something that the world is in its final moments and Tokyo is about to perish. The guy explains destiny cannot be altered, but we still swim against the stream and yada yada. Finally, he introduces himself as Kieru. Good, disappear then, bundle of sticks, since that's what Kieru means in Japanese. Disappear, not bundle. Before managing to leave, they still run into the pink haired girl from Ginza. She somehow ended up in the Abyss maze. Her uniform indicates she is also from Hinawa Academy. She introduces herself as Hikaru Nanase. She'd been living overseas but recently transferred to the school. At the school, Noriko confirms a couple of XPD cops were killed at the shrine. Kaito informs the murderous girl we encountered at the shrine might be Masa Muramasa. Although she used to be friendly with the ex, now things might be different, but it's classified. Noriko, however, just suggests him to tell us everything, so Kaito promises to consult the higher ups on that. The ex has no idea who that guy Kieru is, though. The second mission is to contact Space Envoy, a mysterious character familiar from Operation Abyss. Before that, Kaito explains how the Tokyo Tower transformed into a giant tree due to the science magic of Professor Tenmei Muramasa, the father of Masa, although she's not human, but a doll. Regular stuff. Perv Company's mission is to contact Space Envoy, also known as Ilith. She lives in a different world time dimension or something. Usually she has to be contacted in the Babel sphere, yet on this occasion Kaito can just call her normally. After this exposition, the party gains access to the dual class system. Kangaroo multi-classes into academic/magician already, while others hesitate. The second actual mission involves going into the subway to fight monsters. There are police robots and hairballs to beat up. Once they go through the train, they end up in Ginza. Noriko congratulates the team. A quake or something happens. At the academy, they report dizziness, fuzzy vision, and loss of sense of reality. Then Alice calls from the UN. Apparently, even she felt it along with her squad in the States. The event was global. Alice is sure it had something to do with the embryo. After messing around with the crafting system, the Perv company has to investigate more about Aoi Shrine. How did a random middle school girl end up there, anyways? The place's existence is not public knowledge, but Kaito suspects it may have been leaked. The nearby park with sewers below has some nasty rumors floating around too, so the party has to ask around. They run into Hikaru. She doesn't know about any rumors, but she admits she saw Perv Company near the shrine and followed them the other day. She claims they remind her of her old friends when she was a kid and wonders whether they've met. Then we are reintroduced to Miharu, the detective woman. She doesn't say much though. Professor Mike Cohen seems to be alive still as well and unarrested, but we won't be seeing much of him in this game. Detective Fua shows up too, smoking his cigarette. Kyoko the schizo girl shows her face too, as does Johnny the comedian. The Korean girl Taehyun is no longer in the clutches of the cult either. She tells the squad to meet her. She helps out at her family's restaurant. Taehyun mentions a secret website that each school has, even Hinowa Academy. She discovered a message there asking adventurers to meet up in Gakuda Park. The forum handle was black something. She doesn't remember properly, but the way the person was writing it sounds like they're nuts. I have an idea who it could be. We go to see Kyoko Meguro, her last name meaning black eye. She gives a message. Bad cosmonauts are gathering at the secret place. The shrine is just a disguise. The existence of the shrine that's supposed to be a secret has leaked to the public. Perv Company has to go secure it. Upon arrival, a message states that a variant has abducted a female and escaped into the shrine. We beat up some foxes and find a bigger fox mini-boss that escapes and seeks more foxes on us. Behind it is an illusory wall leading to a temple section. A shrine has a puzzle to solve based on their random syllables scattered around. I've watched enough anime in the 90s to know what Susanoo is. It opens a path below which leads to the sewers. Yay! Sewer level bonus! Rummaging around in the surprisingly clean sewer and spotting a hidden door, we find the fox. Perv Company makes PETA cry. Afterwards, we find some corpses. The cops arrive, and one of them is Hachi, the chick who could get lost in a broom closet and eat your curry when you bail her out. Fuwa arrives as well, asking what was odd about the corpses. Other bodies had been torn apart, but these were slashed with an axe or a hatchet. Back at the base, Kaito says Alice should be coming back soon. The squad heads to Asoba City to meet Hikaru. She wants to go to Sakura TV station where she just prattles on. Next up is a mission to hunt and kill a big variant, Elder Sahagin. It's in the sewers under the shrine. Nice speedos. We defeat it and the mission is done. No plot twists happen. Afterwards, upskirt the monk, dual classes into a knight. Argonaut becomes a samurai slash assassin. Bloodletter gets plastic surgery and turns into an assassin slash Pokemon trainer. The healer Jailbait begins to practice archery. Akai remains just a warrior though. Kaito and Noriko explain they're planning a counterattack on the embryo. Even Alice will be included along with some Elite X members from the UN. Perv Company starts investigating the 7 school wonders at the academy. One of them is the locked classroom. It's rarely used classroom that is mysteriously locked at times. Taehyun explains she'd spotted a monster nearby once. We try to meet with her, but she runs away. She heads to Tokyo Mid Hills near her home. The cops arrive to take her away, but Noriko tells them to stop. The Korean chick explains that she was just scared of the monster and doesn't want to see it. She leads the squad to the classroom and a variant does appear. It's Soul Rebirth from the first game. It summons a spider lady to fight. This game has a few battles outside of dungeons, unlike Abyss. Hikaru invites the squad to meet her on the roof. She takes us into the amusement park. So after she goes off to buy drinks, she doesn't return, but cops appear to inform us that a kid was spotted in the haunted hospital attraction. It's actually haunted, although it should be closed off. Hikaru and a random kid seem to be there. There are gonna be ghosts, so have to mod weapons to be able to harm them. Hikaru and the child are huddled together in the corner. At the academy, Director Kanzaki calls. Alice's plane has disappeared while flying back to Japan. It just vanished into thin air. Then a sudden hazard case shows up. Have to go to the subway to rescue civilians. Some of them had turned into zombies. Ass kicking ensues. Eventually, the squad comes across Johnny along with a bunch of imaginary NPCs surrounding him. More zombos appear though. After the fight, XPD arrives and Johnny says he saw Hikaru there in a place with many doors. Then everyone's vision gets blurry all of a sudden. Perv Company searches more and discovers an unsteady door. On the other side is a blue cyber hall. The fake Masa and her black rabbit show up to say threatening things. Suddenly, a lolly in a futuristic plug suit appears. She claims to be Masa Muramasa. She mentions 7 hands that threaten the Imperial core. Masa battles her fake version and the bunny, whereas we fight a bunch of monsters that look like overgrown, you-known Pokemon. Kieru appears, he tells fake Masa, known as Shinma, to stop. He explains 6 cores have been stopped, and this one is the last one left. Masa finds this rather distressing. The core is a huge D8 cursed by Cthulhu. Masa wants to protect it. She's confused why Kieru managed to find the core so quickly, as they should be well hidden. Kieru summons Hikaru. He explains having created her to find the cores. Hikaru turns into a monster. The bad guy makes Masa and Noriko disappear. When he comes for the squad, another yet similar plug suit lolly appears to save the day. She does something mystical. Perv Company loses their special abilities. The lolly explains she's Ilith, the space envoy. She's possessed Masa's body or something. We have to escape from the cyber dungeons with all our skills and levels gone. Thankfully, the enemies are weak as shit as well. There are a bunch of secret doors in the dungeon. At some point, the squad hears the voice of Alice. She's stuck in a nearby dimension and imprisoned by the Mother Brain. Eventually, the language center is found where they can communicate with her better. The two girls talk about gravity waves and all kinds of bullshit. A bit further, a portal is discovered. We get back to the real world, but all of Tokyo is destroyed, except for the giant Tokyo Tower tree. The truth is, all of Tokyo was destroyed long ago, but it was recreated with code technology. That includes most of the people. Masa leads the company into the underground bunker beneath the academy that is still intact. She restores their levels and powers. The cores hold up the reconstruction, but the embryo wants to destroy them. The 7 hands are the 7 minions of Kieru. There's a bunch of exposition, but the next task is to head to the Abyss Tower. Getting through it, fighting enemies and solving puzzles takes a while, but reaching the special chamber, Masa speaks in her father Tenmei Muramasa's voice. He explains the tower can be used to go back in time to set right what once went wrong. Once back in the past, Perv Company has to protect the cores from being destroyed. Kieru appears again to trash talk. He wants the world to vanish. Unique idea, Seymour. We kick his ass and Masa clones grab him. Masa uses the opportunity to send Perv Company back in time to the moment when Hikaru was holding the boy in the haunted hospital. Outside, Ilith appears and wants to assault Hikaru. The squad intervenes, however. Ilith tells them to block the subway that is about to turn into an abyss. Hikaru has no idea she's been created by Kieru and her memories are fake. She spurgs out, runs away, but gets detained by security and sedated. The characters debate what to do with her. Hikaru has human rights, but she's also a risk, so the CPA is gonna take care of her to observe her. This moment is as good as any to talk about time travel. Time travel is cool when done well, but when it's done badly, it's a crime against humanity. This game belongs in the second camp, unfortunately. It's just a plot convenience, and little effort is made to think about the deeper mechanics and implications of time travel. I advocate making an international law banning badly made time travel fiction. Next up is a kind of bonus mission. We have to deliver a few random items to Elith one at a time. The first one is Missed Task Accessory. I tried really hard to find one to give to her. Unfortunately, as far as I know, it's impossible to find that particular item at this point in the game or in the near future. Let's leave this on the back burner for now. Perv Company takes on another quest to go to Muramasa Hall, a pagoda in the city, to look for clues against the embryo. There are purple walls, teleports, and the minimap doesn't work without the use of a special item. The squad explores most of the first floor but fails to find the critical clue for now. At the academy, Kaito and Noriko explain that physical tests prove Hikaru is human, but all of her past is a lie. Kaito sends us back to Aoi Shrine to find the first of the seven hands. More foxes get beaten up in the sewers, but the big one disappears into a spatial rift, which brings us back to the shrine area. There's a puzzle where one has to travel between different shrines in the correct order. Once that is done, Perv Company finds the core, one of the hands appears, a gay S&M Minotaur. He's a pushover, just kick his ass and go home, as that core is safe. Hikaru is allowed to roam free, and of course she has disappeared. Instead of dealing with her shit, Perv Company goes back to Muramasa Hall to fight a big spider on the second floor. She kills 4 out of 6 team members, but Upskirt and Jailbait take care of her in the end. After reviving them at school, our intrepid combatants head back to the hall and make it to the third floor. The teleporter on the fourth floor is inactive, however. It's back to fighting seven Hanseas. Before that, though, we have to take care of a more perilous task: find Hikaru, who is still missing. Turns out she was just on the roof of the school. She moans how it sucks, all her memories are fake. She's worried she'll be killed if the tests prove she's not human. Hikaru insists that even if everything else about her is fake, her feelings for Perv Company are legit. This is a bit weird detail in Operation Babel, as you essentially go on various dates with Hikaru. Yet, it's not the protagonist plus girl who go on dates, but girl plus 6 party members. She treats the party as a single individual though, so perhaps there's some Fight Club shit going on where Perv Company is just one individual who deludes himself to be 6 separate people. All I'm saying though is that it feels off going on dates, platonic or not, with her, but we're a group of people instead of a single avatar. Elith announces that Hikaru's atomic scan doesn't reveal anything unusual, so presumably the embryo did not create her after all. She also seems to have latent code-rise abilities, yet the squad did witness her turn into a monster in the other timeline, so Hikaru agrees to be confined to the academy. We head back to the haunted hospital. The elevator is stopped on the floor B1 because of corpse machine variants, so have to kill a bunch of them. In the basement, the squad receives a message from a mystery man on the fourth floor. He says the red TV is the key. There's a possessed TV that respawns after having been killed, and it's sort of red. It says random shit at times. You just gotta keep fighting it until it speaks the code 3123. Then go to the elevator and input those numbers into the floor keypad, and Perv Company manages to reach the fourth floor, previously unavailable. There's a dark room puzzle. After that, a portal to another Rice core is found. Kaito's brother Akito from Operation Abyss is there. You have to fight him and the Seven Hands member, who is a witch with big boobs. More like one-handed, am I right? Akito was brainwashed by her. I wonder what kind of assets the witch could have used to accomplish it. Next seven-hander is in the subway. Mowing through enemies, the squad reaches the door leading to the core where Führer is waiting. Despite his name, he looks like a mix of Rasputin and Che Guevara. He transforms into the three-headed dragon from the beginning. He actually succeeds in downing a couple of party members before perishing. The core, however, had already been destroyed. Still, since the other cores are intact, it's not a disaster. Afterwards, we have to guard/go on a date with Hikaru. Perv Company takes her to Aoyama Road where they meet Miharu, the detective chick. Then they go to other places when things get weird. Time seems to stop. Kieru shows up, basically just to shit talk. Supposedly he can awaken Hikaru when he wants. Another hazard case happens in the botanical gardens full of dinosaurs. It's a huge and completely new dungeon to Babel, which is cool. Unfortunately, there isn't much variety to different types of dinosaurs though. When Perf Company reaches the place, Hachi informs she's trapped somewhere with the other cops in the place and wants curry. Let the bitch starve. Orb fragments are littered here and there. A bunch of them need to be gathered to continue. Eventually, though, the XPD and Hachi are found when a high raptor appears. Dinosaurs, don't do drugs. During a moment of weakness, the squad feeds Hachi her curry. At least she goes away. Lots of walking, exploration, and slaying of dinosaurs and other monsters. With enough orbs finding their way to the center of the garden, the way to the core and the seven hands boss opens. Or should I say eight hands boss, since it's a pirate that turns into an octopus. It kicked my ass the first time. With a bit of grinding and luck, the Buccaneer falls. Do you remember that one mission where the squad has to take random items to Elith, but it couldn't be completed since Mist task was not available? Well, at this point, Perv Company decide to give up. Then she asks for something else, an item that actually exists in the game. 4 more and the mission is done. It allows for a brief call with Alice, who is still stuck in limbo. We reached the half point in the game. So, director Kanzaki explains how Tokyo was destroyed at the end of World War II. Professor Muramasa recreated the city. The people who were restored were the first code risers, as are their descendants. Or at least they have affinity. I suppose the Rise cores are basically servers that keep up the world of the recreation. Since the professor was mentioned, the next mission is returning to Muramasa Hall. The sixth floor has a talking daughter puppet. It's possessed by the professor. Ilith and Masa are sharing the same body, which creates problems, so some sort of fix is needed. For that purpose, the squad needs to turn on a generator, transformer, and distributor. This part of the hall can be quite confusing, as you have to jump down platforms to different floors and places, but Muramasa offers a guide dog, which is actually useful. I wonder whether it was added later when the developers noticed finding one's way without help can be tedious. After turning the devices on, Perf Company has to insert plugs into slots on Ilith's back, which is not lewd at all. She explains that the embryo has absorbed half of her home planet already. They didn't take the threat seriously early enough, but now they want to help Earth since they're in a similar predicament. Muramasa's device helps the two personalities harmonize. Another seven-hander is in the cemetery, a dungeon recycled from the first game. On the way, the squad runs into Miharu, who notes how the storyline has escalated into spaceships and monsters from the more down-to-earth narrative of Abyss. At the cemetery is Masuaki, a man who was supposed to have blown himself to smithereens in the previous game. He offers help against the Seven Hands and gives certain coordinates to go to. But further in, Hachi calls informing of suspicious people seen in the catacombs. She's lost somewhere again and needs to be found. Even though the place is old, some enemies are new, like gay vampires and robot elephants. Hachi indeed is found in a coffin in the catacombs. Another thing down there is a bell. When the squad rings it, it explodes and Masuaki appears. The bell was a decoy, according to him. And according to him, we toads should go to some area in the western part of the cemetery, to an area surrounded by 4 trees and a switch. That place makes Perf Company fall into the catacombs, taking damage, where they meet Masuaki again. He accidentally led them into a trap again. Accidentally, yeah, sure. Going down to the catacombs from another entrance, the higher ups call. Kansaki says the investigation is cancelled and the squad should head home. The same thing happened in Operation Abyss. Yet this time the instructions are ignored. The pervs go down the stairs. Another bell lies deep within the underground area. Noriko calls to say we have to ring it once. Kaito says the enemy is trying to trick us and we should ring it thrice. The correct answer then is to ring it twice. Afterwards, Noriko informs that a portal has appeared somewhere. It leads to another core, and Alice is there? She tells us to go to the next area, but we refuse. She goes nuts and runs away. Then Masuaki reappears saying she was an imposter. No shit. Except he alleges there's no seven hands here. He suddenly cries out though and transforms into a pimp named Joker. He's obviously an illusionist. He turns into an obscure Marvel villain mixed with vulgar Lovecraftonitis. The boss is actually fairly tough on the first go because the bastard keeps summoning minions. On the second try, with better equipment, it's easier. The way to the Geomatrix is through Sakura TV. It's a futuristic military base with robots and cyborgs, and not unique to Babel. There's a door puzzle with clues hidden in darkness. Further on is another boss. This one's a sniper, and you actually have to sneak close to him to fight him as he keeps shooting. If he shoots you once, you have to get closer to him from another direction, or it's party wipe. It's basically an annoying noob trap. Sure, the walkie talkie people warn you, but there's a difference between NPCs saying stuff and understanding how game mechanics actually work in practice. Once Perv Company gets close to him, they see he's an old sniper man who turns into a tank, of course. He hits hard, but isn't that tough. At the school, Hikaru asks to meet on the roof. She blabbers on about friendship until Kieru shows up again to trash talk. He causes Hikaru to transform into her Cyber Sephiroth form. This is another battle outside of a dungeon, which is kinda cool as it adds to the tension that you're not truly safe anywhere. Interestingly, after you beat her, it says Hikaru has died, although in actuality she just reverts to her normal girl form. Kieru tries to abduct her, but Hikaru resists him using her Maho Shoujo powers and transforms again, this time beneficially. Then the tedious bad guy disappears again to fap the pain away. Afterwards, everybody is impressed by the innate code rise power awakening of Hikaru. Elith even admits she is human. The last seven-hander is in Shinobasu Prison, an original dungeon. It's inhabited, among other things, by some Gaigerian alien waifu thingies, which completely justifies becoming a Pokemon trainer to catch weird monsters for private purposes. In one cell is the asshole bureaucrat from Operation Abyss. He transforms into a variant. Kicking his ass gives the squad the skeleton key to the prison. He wasn't even the seven hands dude, though. The game has some special wanted variants to hunt. The prison has the heavenly maiden who swallows people whole. See, it's not just me with a filthy mind. One part of the prison interconnects with a bit of restricted Kakura district, a dungeon from the first game. It's only a small part here, but a neat little detail. It leads back deeper into the jail into an area with lots of traps and dispel squares. And just before reaching the portal and having no protective spells on the party, Shinma, the fake Masa, ambushes the party, kicking their asses. It takes a couple of tries to bash her head in. The core is safe. Since Kieru is able to time leap, Perv Company has to contact Professor Muramasa again by going to his pagoda. Arriving there, a voice tells us to go to the seventh floor. It's a very puzzly floor, but eventually a puppet possessed by him appears who explains that he's got time leap countermeasure technology. However, anyone using it would be stripped of their code rise powers, except Hikaru, of course. While the puppet possessed by the professor inscribes a code to Hikaru's body, the squad has to keep the monsters at bay. After all that is finished, we get a warning that the embryo is approaching. Since the seven hands were destroyed, it seems to be descending slowly. Kansaki informs us that if we don't deal with it soon, Marika is gonna nuke the embryo, which might not work out the way intended. Once the NPCs finish prattling, Perv Company enters Babel Sphere inhabited by wyverns. There's a maze consisting of sliding floors. Beyond that are fairies and an area with many dispel zones. Getting through that though brings us into the most annoying area in the game, as we cannot use teleportation spells to move around. Some enemies hit hard, and if they kill a party member, you either have to waste precious resurrection items or head back to base to heal. A little bit of challenge like this is fine, but it goes a bit too far and is simply assholey. Beyond the first area, there's more dungeon without teleportation, but at least Alice informs us she's escaped from Limbo. This time she's for real and not an illusion. In the center of a fairly simple maze is the portal to the boss room, except there are six of them. Perv Company has to beat all seven hand members again, save Shinma. Except this time they hit hard. If you get unlucky, they can one-shot a couple of characters per turn. On one occasion, the boss one-shotted two party members at full health on turn one of the battle. What is a boy to do when such a thing happens? Except grind. So quite a lot of grinding I did. The warrior Akai finally dual-classed into monk. I did not much appreciate this sudden surge in difficulty, especially since it was just the same bosses I'd beaten already. It's not like I had to face them all consecutively either. They just seem to have been buffed. I guess death becomes them? Once we were ready, Perf Company headed back to slay the bosses. After that, it was finally time to go back where it all started, the floating dungeon from the beginning of the game. Except Alice isn't there with her party, it's my guys, presumably due to Kieru's time manipulation bullcrap. Kieru appears, and so does Hikaru to counter him. He blasts her with Kamehameha, causing her to collapse. Then we fight Kieru in his combat mech form. He is not that tough, ending up beaten and bloodied. Hikaru gets up to defy him, and Alice arrives to heal the party. Then Kieru's mother, the mother brain that had abducted Alice most of the game, wakes up. Kieru was a lame-ass version of Sephiroth all along. He is dissolved into nothingness. Same happens to Hikaru. The mother is a big brain with mechanical tentacles. It's a tough fight, and it took me almost an hour as she kept healing herself, but in the end, Perv Company kicked her ass. The embryo lost its core, but escaped to a higher dimension, whatever that means. The monster disappeared, and there was peace, and much rejoicing.
And there was much rejoicing.
Yay! The others are happy, but Hikaru is still non-existent. There should be still some post-game content dungeon to grind and possibly find a way to resurrect her, but I don't want to do that. So that was the story of Operation Babel, New Tokyo Legacy. Operation Babel wasn't bad, but I disagree with the masses who prefer it to Operation Abyss. The improvements in the sequel didn't do much. The dual class system, although sounding nice, felt lackluster. Overall, it's just much of the same as the first installation with many recycled enemies and dungeons. The loot is uninspiring as well. I can't say it's worse than Abyss, yet since it's not better, maybe I just got tired of the vast majority of loot being useless crap. On top of that, the story was inferior. Abyss's story was more down to earth or simply sensible in the context of anime. The first half dealt with students kidnapped by an evil cult that was turning them into monsters, and the second had the Wiz Agency. They were lame like a Saturday morning cartoon evil organization, yet I still prefer them to Space Babies, an open source version of a Final Fantasy villain. Also, we shouldn't forget the bad time travel plot. The story felt a bit short as well, not allowing things to germinate properly. It's like there was a lack of characters that actually had an impact on the story. Everything revolved around Hikaru. Despite her just being your average anime girl, the game made her out to be the key to everything and the coolest thing ever. I didn't hate her, she was just average. The other old characters from Abyss showed up and did something in the course of the story, but it felt like they were an obligation not to abandon the old characters, but they weren't pivotal to the story. There were no new characters either outside of the pink-haired girl. The cop Fuwa and detective woman Miharu didn't do anything at all except showed up a few times. The story wasn't atrocious, just disappointing. The gameplay was more or less the same as with Abyss, mostly functional or even fun, but still there were a few bits that managed to piss me off. This gripe is common to all kinds of RPGs where you get to create your party, but I wish that the individual characters had something unique to do with the story despite not being named and pre-made characters. Still, it affects Babel, especially due to the weirdness of Hikaru going on dates with a group of people. You could have picked one to be her closest friend. All that being said, Operation Babel is not a bad game. I don't regret having played it. I just wish it was more something exciting. I want to implement anti-bad time travel plot countermeasures. Call the UN.